edition of Check Call. Don't forget to subscribe to Check Call, the newsletter on FreightWaves.com if you haven't already. Today we welcome back Joe Orr, Chief Operating Officer at the NMFTA. Welcome back to the show, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
I'm excited to get back into it today because last time you were on, we talked about, different cybersecurity threats in the LTL space and different bad actor things that were happening. And today we're going to kind of double down on that and kind of revisit that topic, see if anything's changed or what to kind of keep an eye out for in 2025 because, new year, new me. I'm assuming that the fraudsters and the bad actors have taken that to heart as well. So they will be the new them with new things. So that being said, what are some of those most significant threats that are, in the LTL space and the broader industry? What are some of those things that are coming down the pipeline for 2025?
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned, it changes every year. Almost every week you read something that's a little bit different, but I think the trends themselves this year are some new, but also some of the things we've talked about in the past. The first thing that comes to mind is AI, AI enhanced phishing. With AI enhanced phishing, it's the ability to hit the smaller fleets. So with LTL, they can hit more, they can be more precise, and bad actors are better at it. So AI enhances the ability to just go broader and better. Another big thing is cyber-enabled cargo theft. So a lot of people, when they think of cargo theft, they think of, old style cargo theft. But now one of the things we're really focused on is the cyber-enabled cargo theft. So it's manipulating things like shipping documents. For example, bill of lading. We know a lot of people, and rightfully so, are going to digital bill of lading. The ability to go in and edit those documents. So you really need to know who you're doing business with. One of the old trends that we've all read about in the newspaper and online is ransomware as a service. That's going to continue to be a trend. Also, misconfiguration leading to exposure of the data. A lot of companies, especially in the LTL industry, they're getting those servers out of the closet, out of the basement, off the property. Also, even out of the data center model, and they're going to the cloud. With that, the skill set required to manage servers or to manage a configuration in the cloud is different than what it is to manage something on site. And so you got to make sure that either you train that talent or you bring in some new talent. Definitely it's different talent or it's a different skill set. So, making sure you have that right configuration. API security within this industry, connections, APIs is so important. You got to make sure you're retiring your old APIs. You've got valid tokens. We always value speed over security. So I think that's a change of mindset. Also, I'll talk a little bit more about it, but make sure you have not just vendors, but you have partners. So those are the big trends that we see in 2025.
So one of the things you mentioned is like the difference in the training. And so this is me obviously not being an IT professional. I know to restart my computer, and that's the beginning and end of my IT awareness. But when it comes to, you said this different type of training, is there really different processes that exist for a physical server on site versus storing something in the cloud? Like, is that a similar skill set, or are those kind of like the same as having someone that can work a forklift and someone that that's a really bad analogy. I don't know, but are those the same two things?
It's different. I mean, if you have a base IT skill set, you can learn cloud, but how you configure cloud security is different than how you configure your own Active Directory, for example. Whether you go to Azure, AWS, how you configure that is going to be different. And you really want to start with, the least privileged and go from there. And so a lot of people have this false sense of, not to use a pun, but a false sense of security. Where Amazon's going to take care of the security or Azure's going to take care of the security. But you really do need to do a security audit. You really need to do, zero trust. You really need to make sure that people have the least amount of privileges. And that's your responsibility. That's not the vendor's responsibility or the cloud provider's responsibility. The cloud provider does not provide that. Now, they've got really good tools to let you know, audit, and let you know what it looks like. But all the widgets, all the controls, those are the responsibility of the person that is paying the bill for the cloud storage. And knowing what tools and knowing how to configure that is a different skill set. Typically one that could be easily learned, but it is a different skill set.
That is the one thing that you said that kind of made me think, oh wow, I think a lot of people are missing this opportunity is that that audit part, or not just relying on your partners for that security. Because you would think like, okay, I've set this up with my partner, but like, what does that look like? What is that? What is that benchmark, or what is that agreement, that service level that says, okay, if there is a data breach, this is how we're going to handle it. This is how we're going to manage it, or this is how it won't happen in the first place. I think that that's something that nobody really thinks about until it happens to them. And then everybody is left scrambling of like, okay, how do I do this? How do I recover from this data breach? Is anything lost? Was anything important lost? So I think that that's something that a lot of people forget is, ahead of time, before you need them, kind of understand what those security and safety measures are. So that way you're the most prepared for when something happens, not if something happens at this point in time, because I feel like it's all just a matter of time.
Yeah. And the one of the things we look at is, and I don't want to jump around, but when you think about budgeting, there's really four things you think about, and it's detection, right? How do I detect what a bad actor is going to do? Well, how do I prevent it? How do I educate? But then the one that people really don't pay attention to is, well, what's my ability to recover? And so that all comes down to business continuity. And so business continuity means how long can I be down? And it can't be, well, I can be down for 5 minutes. That's unrealistic. And with business continuity, that's when you figure out, well, let's say I can be down for 18 hours. And then when you meet with your vendors, you figure out, okay, my business continuity plan says I can be down for 18 hours. So then you figure out, where do I store my data so that it can be restored in 18 hours? How often do I do my backups? How often do I back up my configuration? And then when you do an RFP with your vendors, you actually present that to the vendors and you come up with a business continuity plan with your vendors. We were in Cleveland at our conference. One of the carriers talked about this, and it really, I think struck home, because they said you find out who your partners are, who your friends are, and just, who your quote unquote business partners are when a crisis hits. And this was a carrier who actually went through something, because he had somebody that reached out to him and said, I know you guys got hit by ransomware. What can I do to help? And the person said, this is what I need. And he's like, gotcha. And he helped them with the business continuity. He pulled backups. He pulled, users. He pulled the APIs. And he helped them, make sure that they could restore everything to get back up to business. And so all of that needs documented. And it's not just a matter of, hey, I'm going to go through the motions and jot down some ideas. You actually need to document that business continuity plan. You need to practice it, and do it as a tabletop exercise. Just like you practice any mitigation plan, this business continuity plan needs to be something where everybody has a role, and it really doesn't matter the size of your business. You got to know how long you can be down. Whether you're 10,000 trucks or 10 trucks or 2 trucks. What would I do if this system went down? What would I do if this system went down? In a previous role, I worked with a major beverage provider and spent a lot of time working with them on a business continuity plan where what if the system went down? How long would it take to get them back up? What if a disaster hit? What if a cyber attack hit? And that became part of their business continuity plan.
I think that reminds me of, I believe, something that you broke my brain last time that you were on the show was you said, what happens if you can't log into your computer? How do you continue running your business if you cannot log into your computer, or you can't access your phone record or like your phone numbers or anything? Like, if you as a company are like locked out of your computer, how do you continue to do business? Do you continue to do business? And what does that look like? And then, practice that. And that is something that broke my brain, because then I sat there and I said, I don't know what I would have done when I was in operations and I got locked out of my computer, other than just say, well, guess I'm going home. But like, that's not the that's not the answer. You have to contact your carriers, your shippers, and everyone. But how do you do it if you can't access their phone numbers and or their contacts? So yeah, that ties nicely into last time when you absolutely broke my brain. Going, how do you do your job when you can't get into your computer?
Yeah, it makes we become so dependent on technology that it becomes our oxygen. And so it's almost hard to live in a world where we don't have that technology. You start to think about it. How many phone numbers do you remember? Very few. And so, you have those written down. I know even at NMFTA, we went through this exercise, Marley, with Marley in marketing, I think last week. And, we talked about, hey, we've got to have some things in the spreadsheet. We have to have some things printed up in case we do have a crisis. We've just got to make sure we still have that ability to communicate, in our case, with our employees, with our key business stakeholders, and also with the people that use our products. And so that's part of the business continuity plan. Also, you want to be able to communicate with your key customers.
So when it comes to kind of preparing, so a business plan, business continuity plan, step one. But when it comes to how do I, as a 3PL, a freight brokerage, or as anyone, honestly, how do I protect myself against some of the new strategies that are coming in? So you mentioned there's kind of like that AI, I'm going to miss the word for it, but basically like that AI helping you fish people. And because honestly, they've gotten better, because you used to automatically know because it never made sense in English. It was always very broken English. But now, like, I'm not going to lie, they've gotten a lot better. I haven't gotten some spam emails that I immediately flag and report. They've gotten a lot better. So it's one of those that kind of, what are some of those new strategies that you see really kind of maybe taking over 2025 that people need to be aware of?
Yeah, it's one of the thing is you have to you have to look at training. So you need to really focus on the driver. The driver himself or herself has to be cyber aware. Cyber is a big component now of this. It's cybersecurity training must be specifically tailored, not only to a specific group, but every work group. And that training needs to be clear, concise, and it needs to be relevant to the daily duties of the group being trained. So, for example, it's not a one size fits all, maybe like it used to be, where you got everybody in the room and said, okay, we're going to talk about carrier cybersecurity or broker cybersecurity. And you got the drivers, the dispatchers, everybody, the shop workers, the warehouse workers. Nah, it all needs to be separate. Also, that training should be ongoing. And there should be verification that behavior is being positively impacted. So, it's not just, hey, sit through the training, then leave. There needs to be observations, reviews, training. And I know nobody likes assessments, and nobody wants to see that type of stuff on a review, but that's important. Also, bring in relevant examples, real life scenarios that are pertinent to the industry. And whoever's doing the training, I think that's important. One of the things we're really focused on is using those real life examples, because whenever possible, those are the ones that hit home. Train the drivers on how to spot a scam and make it part of the goals and metrics. And then, the broker staff should be trained on verification. We're seeing a lot of identity theft, and it's easy to pose as a carrier. And that's what we're seeing. People pose as carriers, and stealing identity is so easy in this digital age. So you need to train not just to click on the links like you did in the past, because the links are legit, but it's how to spot the fraud. So, we're seeing things where it's advertised on the load board and it's a very low rate. But if the rate's too good to be true, it likely is. And so one of the things that we encourage is look at the broker history. Do your research. It's never a bad thing to pick up the phone, but don't call the number listed on the broker board. Just go out and look at the website and find the phone number on the website, even if it's a local number instead of the national number. They're going to have access to that load itself, and that'll be okay. Another trend that we're seeing is where a load got stolen because there's a last minute change in the destination. So train the drivers to be aware of last minute changes in destination. Also, train the drivers, if there is a last minute change in destination, pick up the phone and verify, number one. Number two, is that normal? Did it come in a way that's different? Know what's normal, know what's normal. Look for the unusual. Also, again, train your warehouse, vet your carriers, look at their inspection history. How many trucks do they have? What is their inspection history? And then when the driver gets there, verify the driver with the ID, verify the vehicle. Make sure they got a SCAC. The truck should have a SCAC in most cases. So a lot of it just comes down to some due diligence, but a lot of people don't know what information to ask for. So the trend we're seeing isn't, hey, fake things on load boards, isn't fake load boards or it's the information is wrong, or they're rerouting the trucks themselves.
And I would say, like, even from, like, if I am a operations person not at a carrier, and I'm saying all of a sudden, like, I think I can count on maybe one hand the amount of times over 8 or 9 years that I had a last minute change in destination. Like, and it was literally, and it might have been, oh, we flip-flopped 2 stops. Like, if it was a multiple stop, the one stop wanted to pick it up or whatever. and then, or, oh, I got too full at this one, so I can't make that. So but that's like the driver is actively involved in the fall off of that a technical end destination. But from a shipper, like apropos of nothing, just on the road, drivers on the road, and he said, and there's a last minute change to the destination. I think I can count on one hand, the amount of times that happened, just because it's not very common. So I would say that, I mean, unless you have a shipper that is really common, which I don't know a lot of shippers that love to change their last minute locations. But I would say that even as like a operations or a freight broker or anyone that's kind of in that side of the thing of the service, you do need to call. Like if it changes, you do need to call that driver, because at the same time, you don't know if you do send an email, you don't know if that email is going to go to dispatch or someone else, and then that driver is not going to get it in time. Like you need to be calling those drivers and having those conversations with them, so that way everybody knows exactly what's happening and why the destination changed. So it shouldn't always be all on that driver to do the legwork of calling and making sure or verifying. But honestly, one of your biggest pro tips of just, if you see something on the load board, just call the number, not on the load board, but call or like Google Joe's trucking hotspot, and like whatever number shows up there. If you call, it might take an extra minute or two, but you like that minute of two is worth it, in my opinion, to make sure that you're not falling prey to some bad
Absolutely.
actors. And because honestly, that to me, that's like the whole where like all the money making is in fraud, is just people that forget to double check things, is those blind spots that people just don't necessarily, I don't say they don't take seriously, but they just don't think, they're like, this is how we've always done it. Why question it? Why interrupt it? Like, why listen to that maybe little nagging voice that goes, this might be too good to be true, but whatever. At the same time, like, I understand everyone's under pressure to book loads and get capacity secured and then obviously make margin and everything like that. So I think there's definitely, with the right culture, you can strike that balance between needing to get things done and also, not falling victim to fraud.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've got one of the leaders in the cyber team. He's the director of cyber. He's newer to trucking, and he's off visiting a customer and just to learn more about the industry. And I talked to him last night, and he's like, "Man, it's amazing just how friendly this industry is." And he's like, the drivers are able to just, hey, go get what you need, things like that. And I'm like, yeah, it's a tight industry and people trust each other. And while that's great in situations like this, it is an industry where people trust each other. And so sometimes you do need to pause a little bit and take a couple extra precautious steps. And it's not that we don't want people to trust each other, but it's more trust but verify. Most of the people, of course, the people in the industry are trustworthy. It's the bad actors outside the industry that are trying to take advantage of that.
Yeah. It's kind of that once you get the nod from one guy that's like, oh, this is Tim's guy. Like Tim says he's good. Like that's great. I like Tim. Tim's great. But we're just gonna double check that everything you told Tim is actually correct. Because I love the enthusiasm, but I gotta do my part real quick. And then I'll be right with you. And if anyone at the same time, like that person that, Tim referred should be doing that to you. So to me, it's like, well, why wouldn't I verify the people that I'm going into business with? Even if I know parties that have said they're great people, they're great to work with, et cetera, et cetera. I should still be verifying that they are who people have told me, on both sides of the aisle, because as a carrier, I want to know who I'm getting in business with.
Yeah, I mean it's the same thing that we do. I know, with vendor relationships. If we're getting ready to do a vendor relationship, we do look at reviews, and we say, oh, reviews on this vendor are really good. Then we look at their security posture. And then we ask them, for example, what's your CSAT? Have you done pen testing? These are questions we ask. Or like if I take over or start working with a new department, and it's a newer vendor to me, I'll do the same thing. I'll go and look at the reviews and say, "Ooh, this doesn't look like a very good vendor." I'll even go in and let's say, for example, look at Glassdoor reviews and say, "Hey, this isn't a vendor that looks like they treat their people very well." So it's all about reputation. And I think it's the same thing with the brokers and the carriers.
Yeah. And my last thing on it is if someone's going to be squirrely about providing references or referrals or like anyone that you can go talk to like outside of it, you probably don't want to deal with them. So,
Yeah.
that
Yep.
being said,
Exactly.
we have come to our final question of the day. And Jim, last time we got your stance on hot dogs and sandwiches, but this time we're gonna stay on the food side of things, and we're gonna go more structural. So, Joe, if you could build a house out of any food, what would it be?
So I didn't think of it from a structural perspective. I thought of it from a different perspective. I think it would be Jello. And the reason I say Jello is I will use a clear Jello, and that's so I can always I always want to see what's going on. So I would choose something that's clear. I don't like surprises, so Jello to me is I can make transparent, so I can always see what's coming at me, and no surprises. So I think I would pick Jello just to have that visibility.
I like the idea of a Jello house. Specifically, would you put like the things in it? Like you know how there used to be like the Jello mold cake things that had like different fruit in it. Would you incorporate that, or would you just be strictly clear Jello?
Yeah, I could do that as long as I could see through it, and I'd also do it hopefully because it would be in a warm place, and I could enjoy the view. So, unlike this winter.
I like it. Maybe just like on exactly. All right, Joe, if people have questions on, maybe if they have the best floor plan for a Jello house, or if they have any cybersecurity questions, where can they find you outside the show?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Joe Orr, and or you can get to us at nmfta.org. And we have several sections on our website, including SCAC, cybersecurity, digitalization, class IT plus, in addition to classification.
Awesome. You guys heard it here first. Jim, not Jim, Joe. Why did I say Jim? Joe is a bevy of resources. Thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate you having us.
You can find Check Call the Podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Need more running? Nope, not Need More Running on Ice News. That's a different show. Thriving. Don't forget to check out all the other incredible FreightWaves shows, and I'll see you on the internet.